My wedding day didn't feel like the start of anything. It felt like a room I shouldn't be standing in. The collapse didn't begin at the altar. It started a week earlier, with a warning I didn't have words for yet. People love the phrase happiest day of your life. Sounds clean, like a reset button, like you can put on a suit, say the right words, and walk into a brand new version of yourself. I used to believe in that. I used to believe weddings were supposed to be the clean start of a clean life. My name is Ryan Mitchell. I'm not a mystery, regular American guy. I work hard, I show up, I keep my word. I'm the kind of man who thinks love is built the same way a house is built. Measure twice, nail it down, protect it from the weather. 3 years ago, I met Lauren Hayes and forgot how to breathe like a normal person. She was magnetic, sharp, the kind of woman who made a crowded room feel lighter just by walking into it. She had that laugh that wasn't polite. It was real, like she didn't care who heard it. When she looked at you, you felt seen. When she touched your arm, you felt chosen. I fell hard, not like a kid, like a man who thought he'd found the last door he'd ever need to open. So when I proposed, it wasn't some impulse. It was a decision. I pictured years, a home, family, the long grind and the quiet wins. I pictured stability that didn't wobble. That's why the feeling that showed up a week before the wedding didn't make sense. It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't suspicion with facts behind it. It was just a crack, like you're holding a glass you've trusted for years, and you suddenly notice a line running through it. No spill yet, no blood, just that thin fracture that tells you the next drop might be the one that breaks it. Lauren was still Lauren on the surface. Still planning, still smiling, still running lists and timelines. Still calling vendors and checking seating charts like the world depended on linen colors. But her attention slipped at weird times. Her phone tilted away from me in small, practiced motions. Her answers got cleaner, too smooth when I asked basic questions. How was your day? Good. Does anything happen? Nope. No details. No texture. Like she was reading from a script she'd rehearsed in the car. And on our wedding day, standing in the venue's back room while my groomsmen joked and adjusted ties, I wasn't excited. I wasn't even nervous. I was alert. I remember staring at my cufflinks, the silver catching the light, and thinking, why do I feel like I'm walking into a trap? I told myself it was stressful. The cost, the pressure, the weight of everyone's expectations. The normal stuff men don't talk about because we're supposed to be grateful. But the truth is, my confidence had started cracking a week before the ceremony, and I couldn't explain why. Not yet. I just knew something in my life had shifted, quietly, like a lock turning, while I was still standing there believing I had the key. And then Chris Walker called me over to his apartment like it was nothing. That's where the real story starts. Chris Walker lived in a second-floor apartment that always smelled like coffee and laundry detergent. The kind of place that said single guy with decent habits, clean counters, a couple dumb posters, couch cushions that had never known romance. It was a week before my wedding. I told myself I was stopping by to unwind, watch a game, talk about anything that wasn't seating charts or vows or my mother's obsession with centerpieces. Chris handed me a beer, and we sat down like it was any other night. It wasn't. He didn't turn the TV on. He didn't make a joke. He just stood there for a second too long, bottle in his hand, eyes not quite meeting mine. That's when my stomach tightened. Everything good? I asked. He nodded too fast. Then he shook his head, like his body couldn't decide which lie to pick. Ryan, he exhaled through his nose. There's something you should know. Every man has heard that sentence in some form. Even if he hasn't, he knows what it means. It's the sound of a match being struck in a room full of gasoline. I tried to laugh. Came out wrong. What? You gonna tell me my tux makes me look like a waiter? Chris didn't bite. He sat down across from me, leaned forward, and put his elbows on his knees like he was bracing for impact. I wasn't gonna say anything, he started. I almost didn't. But you're my boy, and you're about to marry her, and if I don't tell you, tell me what? My voice got flatter than I meant it to. He swallowed. I saw Lauren. I waited. My fingers tightened around the beer bottle without me deciding to. Last Friday, he said. Harbor Street Bar. Harbor Street Bar wasn't some random place. It was a spot Lauren and I had been to twice. Loud, dark, the kind of place where you can pretend you're anonymous because everyone's too busy being drunk to look closely. Chris kept going like he knew if he paused, he'd lose the nerve. She was with a guy. My mouth tried to form a smile again. Reflex. Denial reaching for anything to hold on to. With a guy, I repeated. Like a coworker? A friend of Ashley's. Chris's eyes held mine. No flinch. No drama. Just that blunt, uncomfortable honesty. No, not like that. I felt heat creep up my neck. The crack from earlier in the week widened. What do you mean, not like that? Chris rubbed his palm on his jeans like he wanted to wipe the conversation off his skin. I mean, I watched them for a minute because I didn't want to believe it was her. He paused. And then she kissed him. My chest went hollow so fast it almost made me dizzy. I set the beer down slowly because if I didn't, I was going to crush it. Kiss him how? I said, and hated myself for asking. Chris's jaw tightened. Like it wasn't a mistake, he said. Like it wasn't a drunk accident. Like they'd done it before. I stared at him like he'd switched languages. No, I said automatically. Nah, that's... You must've. I'm not confused. He cut in, quick and firm. I wouldn't do this to you if I wasn't sure. Silence stretched between us. The kind that makes every sound in the room feel too loud. The fridge humming. A car passing outside. The distant voices of neighbors living normal lives. I shook my head, slow. It doesn't make sense, I said. We're a week out. Chris didn't argue. He just watched me like he was watching a man step toward a ledge. I know, he said. That's why I didn't want to tell you. But I couldn't sit there at your wedding and smile if I didn't. I tried to laugh again, but this time it was uglier. You're telling me my fiancé is out here acting single, I said. And I'm supposed to just, what? Cancel everything because you saw a kiss in a bar? Chris leaned back, tired. I'm telling you because if it was me, I'd want to know, he said. Do what you want with it. I stared at the floor. My brain grabbed at excuses like they were life rafts. Maybe it wasn't her. Maybe it was a cousin. Maybe it was a stupid moment. Maybe Chris exaggerated. Maybe I'm overreacting. All the usual lies a man tells himself because admitting the truth means admitting the whole foundation might be sand. I picked my beer back up, took a sip I didn't taste, and nodded like I was listening. But inside, something cold started forming. Not anger yet, just focus. Because if Chris was right, then the crack wasn't stress. It was reality. And reality doesn't care how much money you spent on flowers. I left Chris's place acting like I was fine. That's the thing men do. We take a punch and tell everyone it was a bump. I drove home with both hands on the wheel like it could keep my life in a straight line if I gripped hard enough. The house was dark when I walked in. Quiet. Lauren had already gone to bed. At least that's what her side of the story would have been. I didn't go check. I didn't want to see her face and have my own betray me. I showered. I brushed my teeth. I did all the normal motions like routine could protect me from information. Then I laid down and found out my body didn't believe the lie I was telling. My eyes were closed, but my brain stayed awake like it had a job to do. It started replaying the last month like security footage. Her phone face down on the counter. Her smile arrived half a second late. The girls' nights that didn't sound like girls. The way she'd step outside to take a call. Like the air inside was suddenly too heavy. At first I tried to fight it. Stop. You're spiraling. Chris could be wrong. She could have been drunk. Could have been nothing. But suspicion doesn't live in logic. It lives in the body. It sits in your chest and changes how you read every memory. Normal moments turn into questions. Little details become loud. I got up and walked through the living room in the dark. I stood by the kitchen window and stared at the street like I expected answers to pull up in a car. I told myself I wasn't scared. That was a lie too. I wasn't scared of losing the wedding. Money comes back. Parties can be canceled. Embarrassment fades if you've got a backbone. What I was scared of was simpler and worse. That I never truly knew the person I was about to marry. That the version of Lauren I loved was real to me, but optional to her. Around 3 a.m., I sat on the edge of the bed and made my first honest decision. I couldn't ignore the warning anymore. If there was truth, I was going to drag it into the light, calmly, cleanly, before it dragged me. Morning came like it always does, too normal for what was happening inside me. Lauren moved around the house in soft, familiar motions. Hair up, big t-shirt, bare feet on the tile. She kissed my cheek as she poured coffee like nothing in the world was wrong. "Morning," she said. "Morning," I answered. My voice sounded steady. My gut didn't. I watched her the way you watch a magician after you learn there's a trick. Every little movement had weight now. Every pause felt measured. She kept her phone close, not in an obvious, panicky way, in a smooth way, like she'd been doing it long enough to forget it was suspicious. I told myself to be smart. No accusations. No emotion. Emotion makes you sloppy, and sloppy men get played. "So," I said, leaning against the counter casually, "what's the plan today?" She sipped her coffee. "Just errands," Ashley texted. "She wants to go over some wedding stuff later." "Nice," I said, like my chest wasn't tight. "Are you still excited?" Lauren smiled. "Of course I am." It was the right answer. It sounded like the right answer. It didn't reach her eyes the way it used to, after she left for her errands. The house went quiet again, and the quiet gave me room to think. I started paying attention like a man who'd been handed a riddle with his future as the answer. The angled phone screen, the late texts that got answered fast and then deleted, the way her voice tightened when I asked basic questions, the way she'd say, "babe," a little too quickly, like she was smoothing something over. By early afternoon, I'd made up my mind. If I was going to live with myself, I needed clarity. She came home around 4, arms full of bags, cheeks pink from the cold. She set everything down, started talking about table numbers like the world was still clean. Her phone sat on the counter. Screen dark, innocent looking. She turned to rinse something in the sink. That's all it took. I picked up the phone like it was a piece of evidence and not the life I'd been planning to join. No shaking hands. No dramatic hesitation. Just quiet focus. I expected at least something. A weird text. A name I didn't recognize. A message thread that didn't belong. It was spotless. No suspicious notifications. No flirty messages. No weird apps sitting in plain sight. Her call log looked like a dentist's waiting room. Family, friends, vendors. Her photos were wedding stuff, selfies, a few shots with Ashley. Clean. Too clean. My stomach didn't relax. Tightened. Because messy phones happen naturally. People forget. People leave clues without trying. A spotless phone doesn't feel like innocence. It feels like effort. I put it back exactly where it was, like I'd never touched it, and walked out of the kitchen before she turned around. Lauren kept talking, unaware or pretending to be, and I realized something that made my skin go cold. Finding nothing didn't calm me down. It made my instincts louder. 2 days before the wedding, the house turned into a staging area. Garment bags hung from door frames like ghosts. Boxes of decorations stacked in the corner. Lauren moved through it all like she was managing a small war. Lists in her head, phone in her hand, smiling on cue. I watched her and I stopped seeing the bride. I started seeing a person with something to hide. That afternoon she came out of the bedroom dressed up more than the situation required. Not running errands nice. Not meeting the bridesmaids for coffee nice. Hair done. Makeup clean and deliberate. Outfit that wasn't meant for folding programs or choosing napkin colors. I kept my face neutral. "Wow," I said. "Who are you trying to impress?" She laughed like I'd complimented her. "Ashley, the girls. It's just wedding stuff." "Wedding stuff," I repeated, like the words tasted normal. She grabbed her overnight bag and swung it onto her shoulder with practiced confidence. "And we're staying over," she added. "You know, tradition. No seeing the bride the night before." There it was, the perfect cover. Tradition is a shield because nobody argues with it. You look like the bad guy if you question it. You look insecure, controlling, paranoid. And a man in my position doesn't get to be paranoid. Not out loud. Not without proof. Yeah, I said, nodding. Of course. Have fun. Lauren stepped closer and touched my chest like we were still us. Like she could anchor me with a fingertip. Don't be weird, okay? She said, half joking. I held her eyes. I'm not weird. She kissed my cheek. Quick peck. Efficient. Then she was out the door. I stood there listening to her heels fade down the steps. The house felt too quiet after. Not peaceful. Empty in a way that made you hear your own thoughts too clearly. That's when something cold and focused took over inside me. Don't panic. Not begging. Not even rage. Clarity. Because I realized this was the last clean window she'd have to move however she wanted without me asking questions. If I didn't know the truth by tomorrow, I'd be standing in front of a room full of people, promising my life to someone who might be laughing behind my back. I didn't touch the liquor cabinet. I didn't call Chris. I didn't pace. I grabbed my keys, wallet, phone. Then I did something I never pictured myself doing in any version of my life. I decided to follow my fiancé, not because I wanted drama, because I wanted the truth to stop being optional. I kept 3 cars between us and drove like I had nowhere to be. Lauren's taillights moved through town with calm purpose. No wrong turns, no hesitation. That part hit me harder than it should have. People don't wander when they're just meeting friends. They go where they've already decided to go. She didn't head toward Ashley's place. Didn't head toward any bridal shop or venue. She headed out past the busier streets and into a quieter neighborhood where the houses sat farther apart and the streetlights felt dimmer. Like the city forgot to keep watch there. I parked a block back and killed my headlights. My heart wasn't racing. That's what surprised me. It was like my body had already accepted what my mind was still negotiating. Lauren pulled up near a corner where there wasn't much around. No stores, no restaurants. No reason to stop unless stopping was the point. She checked her phone once, then looked up the street like she was waiting for a delivery. Then she smiled. Not the wedding smile. Not the polite smile. The real one. Car rolled in dark, nothing special. It slowed and stopped near her. A man got out. I didn't recognize him. Mid-30s maybe. Confident walk. Like this wasn't a risk, just part of his schedule. Lauren stepped toward him without thinking. And they kissed. No hesitation. No nervous glance around. No awkward oops. Just easy, practiced closeness like their bodies already knew where to go. Something in me snapped clean. Not into anger. Into certainty. This wasn't a rumor. This wasn't Chris being dramatic. This wasn't me overthinking. This was real. My hands moved before my thoughts finished forming. I lifted my phone, zoomed in, and recorded enough to make it undeniable. Her face, his face, the place, the time. I didn't need to catch a movie. I needed proof that couldn't be twisted into, "That's not what it looks like." Lauren pulled back, said something I couldn't hear. The man laughed. She touched his arm like it belonged to her. I sat there in the dark and felt my future change shape. Not like it was falling apart. Like it was being stripped down to the truth. They didn't drive far. That was another punch. How little effort it took for her to step out of our life and into another one. The hotel was modest. Not some luxury spot downtown. The kind of place you pass 100 times and never notice because it isn't meant to be noticed. Beige walls. A glowing sign that promised comfort and delivered anonymity. Lauren pulled in like she belonged there. I parked across the street with my hood angled toward the entrance and sat still, watching the door like it owed me answers. The man walked around to her side. She didn't even pretend to be cautious. She laughed at something he said and followed him inside with that same easy body language. Like the world couldn't touch her. I told myself I should leave. A healthier man would have left. Instead, I crossed a line I didn't recognize until my foot was already on the other side. I walked in, not storming, not making a scene, just entering like I was supposed to be there. My face is calm, my insides loud. The lobby smelled like cheap air freshener and warm carpet. They were at the desk for a moment. I wasn't close enough to hear words, but I watched the rhythm. Him talking, her smiling, the clerk typing. Routine. Normal. That's what made it uglier. This wasn't passion. It was logistics. I stepped into the hallway when they did, staying back, keeping corners between us. My brain kept insisting there'd be a moment where she looked guilty, where she hesitated, where she acted like I existed. She didn't. They disappeared behind a door. I stood there a few feet away, staring at that rectangle of cheap paint and metal like it was the border of my life. I did something I'm not proud of. I listened, not for anything graphic, not for proof of bodies, just for the tone, for the truth in the way she spoke when she didn't think she was being heard. I caught a laugh, hers, soft and familiar, like the one that used to land in my chest and settle me. It didn't settle me anymore. It hollowed me out. I backed away, walked out, sat in my car, and kept recording what I could. Timestamps, the entrance, their car, anything that would survive a lie later. And that's when it hit me, clean and brutal. The betrayal wasn't just cheating. It was how easy it was for them. How smooth, how casual. Like my existence didn't even factor into their world. The venue looked like money trying to buy innocence. White flowers, soft lights, linen folded into perfect shapes. People laughing like nothing bad could happen in a room that expensive. I stood in the groom's suite while my groomsmen adjusted their ties and told the same recycled jokes men tell when they don't know what else to do with nerves. Somebody clapped my shoulder. "Big day, man." I nodded. "Yeah." My phone sat heavy in my inside pocket. Proof doesn't weigh much until it's about to change your life. When the coordinator came in, smiling too wide, she said, "We're ready in 5. "Give me 1 minute," I told her. She hesitated. "Sir, 1 minute?" I repeated, calm enough that she backed out. Chris was there. He didn't ask questions. He just watched me with that tight, loyal look like he'd already accepted the fire was coming. The music started. Guests stood. Phones came up. Everyone leaned forward for the moment they'd been promised. I walked to the front. Lauren appeared at the back, arm linked with her father, veil perfect, face set in that bright bride expression that looked like it had been practiced in a mirror. And I realized something simple. If I let this ceremony happen, I'd be lying too. The officiant began, "Dearly beloved." "Stop," I said. The word wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Cut through the room like a switch. A nervous laugh popped somewhere in the crowd. Someone whispered, "Is this a surprise?" Lauren's smile stayed glued on for half a second, then slipped. "Ryan," she said, soft, warning. "What are you doing?" I faced the guests, not her. That mattered. This wasn't a private argument. This was a public contract. "I'm not here to embarrass anyone," I said. "I'm here to tell the truth before I get legally tied to a lie." Her father stiffened. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Lauren's voice sharpened. "You're being insane." I pulled out my phone. 2 nights ago, corner of Linden and 8th. Timestamp. Same man, same car. I looked at her. Hotel after. Her face drained fast. I didn't describe anything beyond that. I didn't have to. I showed the photos, faces, dates, a clean timeline. The room went silent in the way a courtroom goes silent when the verdict lands. Lauren stepped forward, eyes glossy, voice shaking. "Ryan, please." I held up my hand. Not angry. Finished. "No," I said. "This is where I stop protecting you. You don't hear the first few seconds after you detonate your own life." The room was full, but the sound went thin, like everything got wrapped in cotton. I saw mouths move. I saw my eyes widen. I saw a few people instinctively raise their phones higher, because some folks don't know the difference between a moment and a meal. Lauren's face did something I'll never forget. It wasn't heartbreak at first. It was a calculation. A quick scan of the crowd, the exits, the damage. Then the tears showed up like they were on a schedule she'd rehearsed. A couple people made that awkward little laugh people make when they don't know if something is a joke. Then the silence landed heavy, and it stayed. Her mother moved fast, rushing toward her like she could physically block the truth. Her father stood locked up, rigid in that way men get when they're trying not to do something stupid in front of witnesses. My mom's hand flew to her mouth. I watched her eyes dart around the room, not looking for blame, looking for a way to make it not real. Chris didn't move. He stayed where he was, shoulders squared, face tight. A quiet, loyal presence. He'd lit the match, and now he was standing next to me while the smoke rose. That meant something. Lauren took a step toward me, hands slightly out like she was approaching a frightened animal. "Ryan," she said, voice shaking. "Please, don't do this. Don't do this." Like this was my choice. Like she hadn't already done it. Twice, maybe more, when she thought I'd never know. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't throw insults. I didn't perform. I'd already made my point, and the point wasn't to hurt her. The point was to stop lying for her. "I'm done," I said. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Her eyes flicked to the guests. Our guests. Then back to me, and her tone sharpened, desperate. "We can talk privately. Right now. Please." That's what cheaters want when the spotlight turns on them. Privacy. A closed room where they can rearrange reality, where they can cry and bargain and blame shift until you're the one apologizing for catching them. I held her gaze and kept my face still. "You had privacy," I said. "You used it." That was all I gave her. I didn't argue. I didn't let it turn into a scene where I looked emotional and she looked misunderstood. Men lose power the second they start begging for a truth they already found. The officiant, poor guy, looked at me like he wanted to disappear into his collar. I nodded at him once. "We're done," I repeated, to the room this time. "Everyone can go." A few people stared at me like they expected me to explode, like they wanted the messy version for their stories later. When I didn't give it to them, the room got even colder. Nothing makes people uncomfortable like a man who refuses to fall apart. Someone started to clap, one person hesitant, and then stopped when nobody joined in. There was no applause. Not really. Just shuffling, whispering, the sudden movement of chairs. A couple older relatives tried to act like they were helping by saying things like, "Let's all calm down," as if calm was the problem. Lauren tried one more time, tears spilling now, voice cracking. "Ryan, please, I love you." It almost made me laugh. Not because it was funny, because it was absurd. Love doesn't live in hotels. Love doesn't live in deleting messages. Love doesn't live in looking your fiancé in the eye and letting him plan a life while you act single when the sun goes down. I didn't say any of that out loud. I didn't need to. I just looked at her like she was a stranger wearing my fiancé's face. Then I turned and walked out. Not storming. Not sprinting. Just walking. Outside, the air hit me clean and sharp. Cold enough to wake you up. Honest enough to make you feel your own skin again. I stood for a second near the parking lot and listened to the muffled chaos inside the building. People trying to make sense of it, people choosing sides, people rewriting the story already. My phone started buzzing like a trapped insect. Texts from my aunt. "What happened?" Texts from my brother. "Call me now." Unknown numbers, you didn't have to humiliate her. A message from Lauren. "Please answer. Please, please." I didn't open them right away. I got in my car, shut the door, and just sat there. Hands on the wheel, eyes forward, breathing slowly. That's when the strange part arrived, the quiet after the impact. The part nobody films. It didn't feel like triumph. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like stepping out of a burning building and realizing you still smell like smoke. It felt like my brain kept reaching for the future it had been holding. Honeymoon plans, a shared last name, kids someday, and finding nothing there. Lauren called. I watched the screen light up with her name, the same name I'd been proud to say out loud. I let it ring. Then she texted again, and the messages came in waves. Apology, panic, anger. Like she was throwing every tool she had at the door I just closed. "It wasn't what you think. You're ruining everything. Please don't do this. We can fix it. Fix it." Like trust is a vase you glue back together and pretend you don't see the cracks. I didn't answer, because here's what I learned in that parking lot. Staring at my own hands like they belonged to a different man. Love isn't proven by how much you tolerate it. It's proven by how quickly you protect your dignity when the truth shows up, even if it costs you the dream you were chasing. I didn't lose a wife that day. I lost a lie, and I kept myself.